Hey guys, and welcome back to the Alaskan Man Cave. Today I got another custom camo to do. I have a Ruger Breakdown 22 stock to do in a multi-cam pattern. We're going to be doing it with 5 different colors. I think this thing's going to come out pretty nice. So we got a 4N, we have the stock, and two different cheek pieces here to do. Let me show you the colors we got. Okay, as you can see, we have multi-cam green, multi-cam dark green, multi-cam bright green, multi-cam olive, and multi-cam dark brown. I'm going to start this project out by painting everything with the olive. Then I'll lay a few stencils down and we can put the multi-cam brown down. Then I'm going to take the multi-cam green and the bright green, and I'm going to kind of marble those together, and we'll lay a final set of stencils and we'll spray down multi-cam dark green, and that will look like our background color. So that's what we're going to be that's the order we're going to use the colors, and hopefully this works out. So I think one of the hardest parts of this project is going to be trying to match the camo between the stock and the 2 cheek pieces. So what we're going to have to do is when we do our cheek pieces, we're going to try to find either a very similar or the same stencil to overlap that seam. Otherwise, it'll look out of place when one of those is on there. So we're going to try to match both of these cheek pieces to the stock. Another thing that's extremely important, guys, is when you're pulling your parts out of the sandblaster, you really want to blow them off good for a couple of reasons. One is if you've got sand stuck inside here and you start spraying, the pressure from your spray gun can blow some of that sand out and get it into your coating, leaving you with a really rough finish, and the customer's not going to want that for sure. The other thing is if you got moving parts, like here we got these little pinch pieces, and right now I can't even move that because it's all jammed up with sand. So we're going to want to blow that out and get that running nice and smooth again before we paint, because if we paint that and the paint gets down in there into the sand, it'll basically turn it into glue and it'll never come out of there. So make sure when you pull your parts out of the sandblaster, you blow them down really, really well, and then you also spray it down while you're working the piece to make sure you can get it to run freely again. I had a little trouble getting these to run smooth again, so I went ahead and disassembled it, and I was able to get all the rest of the sand out of there. So anytime you can disassemble something completely, it's definitely recommended. But when I initially tried to take this apart, I didn't realize that there was a little plug right there hiding another screw, so I had a little trouble getting it apart. But once I realized, hey, this is just a little plug, and pull that out and there was a screw in there, we were able to pop it apart no problem. So now we're fully disassembled, and we'll go ahead and get ready to start painting. We got everything blasted and it's ready to go. So let's mix up some olive and we'll get into the paint booth. I'm going to start out by spraying my small pieces right here. Now these pieces, only this part shows, so I'm just going to spray that area and call it good. Then remember, anytime we're doing our base coat, this is the layer that's going to provide all the protection for your part. So make sure you do a nice, good, even coating on your first layer. All the remaining layers will only be decorative. All right, our parts have tacked out and we're ready to start laying our first round of stencils. Now when we lay these stencils down, again, we want to remember we want to cover roughly a quarter of the surface to keep the pattern more or less even. So we're going to start out, we'll lay some stencils, and we'll get the brown sprayed on next.
So as I'm working the cheek pieces, I'm going to lay a stencil on this first cheek, get it placed, and then I was able to find another identical stencil, and I'm going to set the other cheek piece up there and get it lined up and continue on. And remember, when you're doing this type of camo, the first round of stencils is actually going to look like the top layer of stencils on the finished part. So when you're laying your stencils, keep that in mind, that these are going to be in the foreground of your pattern.
Well, that's going to do it for our first round of stencils. I've already got the brown mixed up. I'm going to head right over to the booth with it. All right, we got the brown tacked out. We can start setting our next layer of stencils, and we'll get I've already got the two colors of green mixed up that we're going to fade together, and well, let's keep going.
And as we're laying these stencils too, remember where the placement of the original stencils were. Some of them can overlap, but also you're wanting to make sure that you've got enough room for your next round of stencils too. So basically we're going to have 3 layers of stencils and 4 layers of color. So we're going to cover about a quarter of the surface with each layer of stencils. Also, when I'm laying this round of stencils, I'm thinking about my next layer, which is going to be the 2 color fades. So like I said, I've got the two colors that I'm going to marble onto here, and then I'm going to lay a final round of stencils on. So I want to make sure that I've got everything placed nice and even, and there's plenty of room still to have my larger areas of fades, because I will use some bigger stencils when I go to cover up the fades, so you can actually see that transition a little better. So there's a lot of things to consider as you're placing these stencils.
All right, with these parts all tacked out, we're ready to lay down our next set of stencils. And I've kind of been saving some of the larger ones for this stage. That way we can see some of our transitioning and our fades. So we're going to start laying down a few of the larger stencils on this one.
And on this layer, when I'm laying my stencils, I'm trying to showcase the transitions between the 2 greens. So I want to try to lay these larger stencils over the points where the colors fade together. That way we can see it in the finished product. And since I'm trying to showcase the fades a bit, I'm going to lay a lot more stencils on this layer than I've done on the previous layers. So that way we'll see quite a bit more of it. And also by this stage we can see now just how much of the background color we're going to have showing, and so I can use all of these stencils to show off my fades to kind of help balance the amount of that background color we're going to have, to make sure it's just not going to be too much. So we'll just lay stencils pretty much everywhere.
Okay, I got these where I want them. Lots of stencils on here because we want to show the fades. So now we can get our last color and spray her down. All right, now the fun part. We get to start peeling all the stencils off. See what we got. I'm liking the look of the fade. I'm thinking this came out pretty good. I know I've said this in several of my videos, but it's way easier to peel these stencils off if you do it while they're still warm. They're a lot more elastic, and it won't tear up as much.
Another little tip or trick I thought I'd mention is, after I'm done pulling off all my stencils, I like to take like some mineral spirits or a thinner similar to that and wipe down the entire the entire project. Because if there is any residue from the stencils, I can get that removed before I give it back to the customer. And then also, if there's any dry spray, it'll come off during the wipe down. And if there was any improperly adhered paint, I have the opportunity to repaint the project before I give it back to the customer. I've had a couple of projects with adhesion issues due to the multiple flash cures and the top layer not wanting to stick to the first layer. The wipe down is good insurance.
Well, all the stencils are off. I think overall this came out really, really nice. I like the way the fade worked. I also like how well our stencils lined up from piece to piece. I think this is a good success. I like how the olive here on all of our external pieces. I think that gives it a nice look. So I think we can call this one another successful paint job. Very happy with the way it turned out, and I'm hoping that the customer will like it just as much as I do. But that's all I have for you today, and thank you again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.